them credit for kind of making an old-fashioned Western adventure that nobody seemed to like at all.
So do you think it suffered kind of from what Heaven's Gate did years ago? Just too many high expectations. They picked on the budget and didn't really look at the movie for its content.
Yeah, I think it's a situation like that. But, there's a lot of movies that really bombed this summer. There's some that just opened in the theaters in the last couple weeks. Kick-Ass 2 is a big disaster.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, I like the first one, too. I have not seen it, but people generally don't seem to be a fan of this one. There was a movie that I had high expectations earlier in the summer called Gangster Squad.
Right. I just saw that, and I liked it, but wasn't crazy about it.
Yeah, it was a movie that was held up for a while for some reasons and had a terrific cast. I thought it was okay, but, I thought maybe another Untouchables. It had the makings of that, but didn't
Great
quite
star power.
Yeah,
terrific star
Ryan
power
Gosling,
in that film.
Sean Penn, Emma Stone.
I didn't care for it.
Yeah, you didn't care for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I did care for The Conjuring.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. It's a great old school horror movie, isn't it?
Yeah, well done. It's going to definitely pass the test of time. It's one of those type movies that 10 years from now you could watch and be frightened by it, and it wasn't ridiculous at all. I thought it was just so well done.
Hey,
anytime Lorraine Warren is in these scary movies, not the real person, but actually the real person was in one of the scenes, but anytime she's portrayed in these movies, they're usually pretty good. Because her story is very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I like the old school horror movies. I'm not really into the heavy gore, and this movie made it. It reminded me a little bit of Insidious, same director. And I thought that was pretty creepy. I thought this was even better, though.
Oh, I did too. I thought it was just really well done.
Irv, before we get going further here, can you give us a little bit more on your background? I know you're at Movies Unlimited. I want to make sure people out in our audience know where to go to find your stuff. You're such a passionate film guy. You write, you review, you do great recommendations. I used to have you on the radio 5 years ago. Can you give us a little background?
Sure. I'm based in Philadelphia. And I've been with Movies Unlimited for a while, and I do a blog on their website, which is moviesunlimited.com. The blog is called Movie Fanfare, FANFARE.com, which I do a lot of the writing, but we also have other people. It's a terrific website. We have stories about stars. We have interviews with directors. We have games and quizzes and stuff like that on there. Everything about movies, old, new, classic, not classic, cult movies. So that's where you could find my stuff. And, since I was a kid, I loved movies, and I always wondered how I could do something involving movies. And I got lucky and went to school, Temple University, where I teach now. I teach a film and journalism class there about movies. And, I've written for a lot of publications. I've written a few books, a book on the movies of the 60s called Groovy Movies, and I wrote a book called Philadelphia about the movies that were shot and set in this area where I live. And that's my background. That's my capsule.
Very cool. So, Groovy movies. I love those movies from the 60s. I even like, things like Deliverance. Was that from the 60s or is that early 70s?
That's the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, that's what okay.
That's a great movie. That's one of my favorites, yeah.
So many kids today, gosh, I sound like the old man telling people to get off their lawn, and I don't mean to come across that way. But I'm 47 now, and I watch these movies come into the Cineplex, and it's either animated or it's something that's exploding. What is going on in cinema today, Irv? It's really, really frustrating. Now, fortunately for me, I have an indie film house like literally a block away, so I can go see Blue Jasmine and I can go see a Fruitvale Station.
Right. Well, that's what's happening. It's mostly, like you said, the kids' movies are taking over the multiplexes, and the big event movies, what they call tentpole movies in Hollywood. And then you sort of have to look harder, or often on cable now, is where the independent films are. And to me, they're the better films these days. Hollywood is not really making many good movies. It's the smaller films, the independent films, that give you something that deliver more than just like a thrill, and then you leave the theater and you forget it. So, you're lucky that you have that access to that kind of theater. But the whole business is changing just over the last few years. Now, it seems like a lot of stuff goes onto video on demand, and that's sort of becoming the independent theater of this generation. That's where you go, and you have to spend like $7 or $8, and you can see a movie the day it's released in the theater, or even before. Just 2 weeks ago, I saw 3 films that had not even opened in this market. It's a pretty big market. We're the 5th biggest city.
Right.
And I got to see The Canyons with Lindsay Lohan.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw a movie called Twixt, which Francis Coppola directed, that got no distribution.
Wow.
And I saw Brian De Palma's new movie, which only opened in a couple theaters, called Passion. So 3 big directors, Coppola, Paul Schrader, and De Palma, and these movies, you have to go to TV to see them. You can't see them in the theater, or it's hard to find them in the theater.
And so I'll add another one, Irv.
Yeah, sure.
No, Irv, I saw Lovelace because it didn't open around here, and I was very curious about that. It's an interesting subject, and there was so much hype about it, but it didn't open in any theaters in our area. So my girlfriend and I, we got it on demand for $8.
Yeah, that I need to see that. It played here for 1 week, and it was gone. I mean, literally 6 days. It was gone, and that's another case. So people say, they don't make any good movies anymore, and I disagree. I think they make a lot of good movies. They're just hard to find, or you got to work a little harder to find them.
Irv, the one problem with that I see with watching movies on demand in your home is part of going to the cinema used to be the experience of being with other people, sharing the film, and that was what was so cool about going to The Conjuring, Irv, was the reactions to the people by me to all the scares that were going on. It added to the fun. It added to the experience of that film.
Can I jump in? Similarly, The Butler, the horror and appall at the prejudices of the past, but also the reaction from white and black people. At the end, I mean, there were actually rounds of applause, and I won't give away the end of the movie, obviously, but there were rounds of applause in the theater at the end of that movie. So, Ty, I could totally understand what you're saying there. In both circumstances, The Conjuring and The Butler, 2 totally separate, obviously, polar opposite movies, but both invoked a reaction from the audience.
And Irv, the other night when I saw Blue Jasmine, have you seen that film yet, the Woody Allen film Blue Jasmine, Irv?
Yes, and you can sort of write Cate Blanchett's name on the best actress at this point.
She's just phenomenal in it. But the funny thing, Irv, is that film, I sat in a very small audience, but everybody was so uncomfortable by everything she did. You should have seen the reactions from the people from the people sitting by me. Because you just are so shocked by her behavior in that film. So it's great we can get these films on demand and not necessarily at the Cineplex, but at the same time, to me, part of spending that, heck, in some cases, $13 is to be able to enjoy the experience with strangers.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I much rather see the film in the theater. And you remind me of something that happened the last few days. I have a bunch of friends that live in New York City, and the De Palma movie called Passion, Rachel McAdams and Naomi Rapace from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is in it. And I love Brian De Palma's films, Carrie and Dress to Kill. And the film had not opened here. I didn't know it was going to, so I watched it on demand. And I thought it was very disappointing, and I thought it was kind of a warmed-over treatment of, some of the stuff he did better years ago. And all these people in New York, they were telling me this is a terrific film and they loved it and it's the old De Palma, and I just didn't see that. And they all saw it in the theater. And I thought maybe it's the experience of seeing the theater that took something away from it, and I wish I had a chance, but I just didn't have a chance to see that. It's not opening in this market. So I think that shared experience and just, it's something special, about seeing a movie in a theater. There still is, at least for me.
We have a lot of
the whole other problem where people think that, the theater is their living room, which is a whole other can of worms.
Very true.
Text and talk and, eat chili dogs, next to you, but, that happens, so.
Let me ask you something. As I guess probably, not probably, you're a movie expert. I mean, you see the disclaimers prior to the movie, all of a sudden now, shut your cell phones off, no texting, blah, blah, blah. Is this something you find offensive if somebody 4 rows in front of you is texting?
Absolutely.
Explain that.
Why is it?
Why and whatever you were going to say. Embellish on it.
Yeah, well, I just think that, the phone should go away. They should go off when you're at a theater. You should give, you and everybody around you should give the screen your undivided attention. People around you have paid the $13 to see a movie and not be bothered. As soon as that light from the phone, from the face of the phone goes on, you become aware of it. It takes you, out of the movie. And I just find, I'm all in favor of this people being kicked out. I mean, I am very, I'm not a movie Nazi, but, things that annoy me in the theater really bug me. And I could just go through a plethora of things that bother me, but that's certainly one of them. Now, I have noticed, since I've noticed that the theaters are being stricter about this, and there's more warnings. And I noticed since that happened, I'd say in the last 6 months, that I've noticed less people doing it. So I hope there has been some effect. But I don't think texting or cell phones.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I was actually sitting in the same row, and a row ahead of me, but over, there was somebody texting, and the lady to the right of me leaned over and said, "Stop doing that." And there was almost an argument in the theater over it. Now, in the person's defense, it was still the previews.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that, and then they put it away.
Right.
I don't have there's always this anxiety that overwhelms me. Oh my God, is this person going to be doing this through the movie? When you see them do it during the trailers, or now the commercials, which are in theaters, which annoy me too. But if they put it away, then it's okay.
Well, it's like when that tall person comes walking in, or the person with the big hat on, and they're walking up the steps and they're creeping towards your row, and you're praying they don't sit right in front of you. Now, that when I was a kid used to drive me crazy. Obviously, we don't have much of that anymore because we have auditorium-style movie theaters, but it never failed. The tall guy always sat right in front of me.
Yeah, I've gotten that, and when I go to a theater, I try to sit away from the crowd. In other words, if there's stadium seating, I will sit in the first couple rows, where most people don't sit. But it seems like they always find me. They'll always sit like a seat away from me, even if I'm the only one in the theater. I don't know. It's a communal thing. I don't know what it is, but I know what you mean about the tall person, and now there's just other things that annoy you in the theater. I was in a theater recently where somebody actually had an iPad out, and they were playing a video game without without headphones on.
Oh,
and I went to complain, and the manager came up, the guy put it away, the manager left, and he took it out again.
Oh, my goodness. That's unfathomable. I can't even consider that. But you know what? When you're thinking about today, you go out to, I used to own a restaurant. You'd be in a restaurant, and parents have their kids with their video games at the table having dinner, so they behave. So these kids they're not raised the right way. There's no etiquette. No,
absolutely not. Now, I think a movie like one of these big action superhero movies, you're more likely to get the texting. I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't think you're going to see too much of that in an art theater or an independent theater, but it has happened. I've experienced there too, but certainly less likely. So I just think it's the sign of the times. People have home theaters. They think